Hi everyone, welcome to Make Moments Matter, a music education podcast, where I share lesson ideas, songs, games, and inspiring things for your elementary music classroom. My name is David Rao, and I am the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. This episode of the podcast is a replay containing the audio version of a Musical Mondays live video. If you're not familiar with Musical Mondays, every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I go live on Facebook and Instagram to share about the lessons that I'm using in class with my students. I give a recap of my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons, and then do a deep dive about one grade level and share the books, instruments, songs, and process that I use to teach the lesson to kids. This podcast episode contains all the audio from the Musical Mondays video, but if you'd like to see a replay of the video itself, you can find a link to the archived video on YouTube when you click the link in the notes for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Here's the show. Hey everyone, my name is David Rao, and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Facebook, on Pinterest. Do people still use that? On Instagram, on TikTok, a variety of places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit of a recap about, I was just at the Texas Music Educators Association conference. I'm going to talk just a little bit about that, but then I'm mostly going to talk about rhythmic building bricks and how you can use those in a variety of lessons and use them in ways however you want to use them. Just to give you some ideas, I'm going to talk through and show you some resources, and then share some extras that you might want to consider for your classroom. In fact, I can remember. Okay, so that's in just a second, but let me talk about just a couple quick housekeeping things. If you are interested in finding any of the resources or the things that I talk about in these videos, I have a whole page on my blog dedicated to those things that I talk about in these Musical Mondays videos. Just go to makemomentsmatter.org/video, and you can find all the resources that I talk about in these videos. Also, if you want to not just see me through a computer screen, but like see me in person, like I was at the Texas Music Educators Conference last week, and you want to experience things like that and like see people in person and like learn together, I'm doing a bunch of workshops coming up, and the two that are most the closest in the near future are Alberta Orff, which I'll be in Edmonton, Canada for the Alberta Orff chapter. That is on March 7th. And then I'll also be with the Greater Rochester Orff chapter on April 18th. So I hope you'll come and join me for either of those. Also, I'm doing Orff Level 1 and Orff Level 2 this summer, which are 2-week courses. They're Orff Level certification, so like a summer PD. I'm doing 2 weeks of Level 1, and that's in Orlando with the Central Florida Orff chapter. Registration is open, and it's like halfway full. So if you're thinking about it, come join us. It's going to be so much fun. And in between the 2 weeks, why not, like, you know, take a trip to one of those parks that's in Orlando? Or by the way, last year I went to the Kennedy Space Center. I've always wanted to go. I'm a space nerd. I like grew up loving everything sci-fi, especially Star Trek, but whatever, like all sorts of things. And did you know that if you present your teacher certificate, whether you're a Florida teacher or from another state, me, you get into the Kennedy Space Center for free? What? So like, okay, so when you come and join us for Level 1 in Orlando, you can, Universal, Disney, whatever. Or you can go to Kennedy Space Center, or all of those. I mean, there's time in between, the week in between. My homework won't be that crazy. You will have some time. Also, I'm doing Level 2 this summer, and that is mid-July, and that's going to be at the University of Missouri St. Louis. If you're looking for a Level 2 course, ours is amazing. We have a great recorder and movement teacher, and we have housing, and the housing is very inexpensive. So consider coming and joining us for Level 2. And the content's great. I'm going to have a really great time, just like last year, teaching Level 2. But anyway, come and join us. It's going to be great. Okay, that's all the housekeeping stuff. I was just at the Texas Music Educators Conference, and I always walk away with just so many ideas. I was able to present sessions, but also I was able to like go and sit in on other sessions and explore and learn with everyone else. It was such a cool, enriching experience. I made some fun friendships and saw people I haven't seen in a long time, and so it was a really cool experience. Um, and I wanted to share something from one of my sessions. So that's what I'm going to talk about tonight in just a second. But I also want to say that's things you find at conventions. It's worth it just to go to like make friends, make connections, to do all of that. The Texas ORF chapters, the collective many chapters, had a cool like booth because there are many ORF chapters in Texas. They had this like booth and they were handing out these like really hilarious cool buttons, which I've already like put mine in my bag to go to school, so I don't have them. But they're so many hilarious buttons. If you're like an ORF person, they're great. You should, if you're curious, email me and I can give you the email to reach out to one of those chapters in case you want to see what they did to promote their chapters at their state convention, and also the cool buttons that they had. There are some really cool ones. Also, you never know what you're going to find on the sales floor. I found a new friend that is coming to school with me. I don't yet know what I'm going to do with this stuff, but I'm very excited about it. It's called an orchid mantis. And I learned because it's beautiful and wonderful. And I was like, this is cool. I think I really got to. It looks like an alien. But I was like, I don't know. I think I need this. An orchid mantis does look like a flower. That's how it like draws things in. And apparently they can trick other pollinators and then they like nab them and eat them. So like, I don't know. I don't know how to use this yet. But I knew that this needed to come home with me. And so from one of the booths, this little puppet came home with me. Hilarious. I'm going to figure out how to use in the future. Lessons to come. Lessons to come. And it's kind of creepy, kind of scary. It's got these little, like, I don't know. I think it's going to be so great. My kids are going to love it. They're going to be so weirded out by it. I'm already weirded out. I think it's going to be great. Can't wait to share what happens. What should I name it? I always give my puppets random, boring names, like Peter the Rabbit, or Snowy the Owl, or I don't know, Fluffy the cat, because I can never remember, if I ever name them like Sforzando, like I'm never going to remember that. So like, what could I name the orchid mantis? Should I name her like Lily? Wouldn't that be sweet? I don't know. I'll think about it. Okay, enough about that. Enough about TME. It was a really great conference. If you were there, it was so nice to see so many people and get to share. But let's talk about content. One of the things that I shared in a couple different sessions was about rhythmic building bricks. And I want to talk about how I use them in my classroom and give you some ideas of how you can use this concept in a lot of different lessons. And what you might do with it. So what are the rhythmic building bricks? So many years ago, if you're familiar with Orff Schulberg, you might be familiar with the name Gunhild Kateman. Kateman was originally a student of Orff, and she was at the Guntherskole. She went to school. Orff was one of her teachers. And then she was so prolific and so brilliant that when she left the school and she graduated, they were like, can you come back? And so much of what became Orff Schulberg is because of Kateman and her tireless work. She was just like a brain. She was really, really great at figuring out pedagogy. She was great at figuring out how and why things worked. And so much of the Schulberg is Kateman. And if you look at the books, like the published Orff volumes, guess what? It says Karl Orff and Gunhild Kateman. She was so important that her name went on the books. In fact, because she did so much of the work. In fact, Karl Orff many, many, many times was congratulated, or people talked to him and they're like, oh wow, this is really great, and he was like, oh, if you like this, it's Kateman, she did that. And they're like, oh, okay, but really, we're so proud of you, Karl. And he's like, that's great, but it's not me, it's her. And he many, many, many times said this, but because he was like the white dude who was like around at the time, he became the figurehead and helped draw things together. But really, Kateman was such a huge driving force. In fact, there's this really wonderful book called Discovering Kateman. It's by Jane Frazee, who was another brilliant Orff Schulberg mind, sorry. But even though Jane isn't teaching anymore, she's still a brilliant mind. I would love to spend like a week with her and just like hear her stories. Anyway, she wrote this great book called Discovering Kateman, and it goes through and talks about a lot of the different works that Kateman did, things that she published. in the different in Erste Spiel and the Spiel books for xylophone that Kate Mann really was in charge of. And this book, Discovering Kate Mann, goes through and gives more ideas, deconstructs things, and gives you so much more. So, like, this is a required material for my level 2 students. I have them get this, and then it becomes a big part of what we learn and use in class. Anyway, it's a really great book, but that's about Kate Mann. If you want to read actually from Kate Mann herself, you should get this book called Elementaria. Elementaria was written by Kate Mann, and it is dense, but it is packed with examples. So if you're like, that looks like a big book, a lot of it is like written examples. So you're not, I mean, yes, you are getting some great written instruction, but a lot of it is explaining and showing what she meant in the moment. So there are just so many great ideas. This is a required material for my level 1 students in Orchestral work. So this is like fundamental practical handbook. It's really wonderful if you want to get into Kate Mann's brain. And one of the things she talks about in here is the rhythmic building bricks or rhythmic building blocks. It kind of depends on who you're talking to. I think she originally called them building bricks. I think people call them building blocks now, but whatever. The idea is that there are these little fundamental rhythmic pieces. There are 5 of them if you're using patterns of 2. You can also do patterns of 3, but there are these 5 little pieces that Kate Mann says that you can basically reduce any complex rhythm down into one of these 5 bricks, or you can use these bricks in different ways. So the bricks she's talking about are these. There's ta, ta. Okay, I should have pulled these apart already. Ta-dee, ta-dee. So 2 sets of 8th notes. Ta, rest. I'm going to come back to this one. Ta, ta-dee, ta-ti-ti, and ta-dee-ta, or ti-ti-ta. So 3 sounds, 2 sounds for ta-ta, 4 sounds for ta-dee, ta-dee, or 1 sound for ta-rest. And some people make this a half note. The reason I do it for a ta-rest is that very often I'm having students speak it, and I don't think that you can speak a whole note. Not really. Not with natural speech. Like you're going to say, hey. It's not hey if you're using like natural speech. So if you're going to speak it, I would use a quarter note, quarter rest. If you're going to sing it, you could maybe use a half note. Or play it, you could maybe use a half note depending on what instrument you're playing on, if it's a sustaining instrument. But for my students, I make this a quarter note, quarter rest most often. But there are some people who prefer having a half note. It's just that because I use it for speech so often, I don't make it a half note. I make it a quarter note, quarter rest. Okay, now these 5 different bricks, the idea is that the more students use them, the more they're comfortable with them, that these become kind of like sight words. And so later when you ask students to arrange or compose or improvise, instead of going like, right? Like instead of doing something random, kids will start parroting back these things that they've seen and spoken so often. Right? Like they'll come back with these little patterns that they've made, and maybe they have some variations, like I threw in a little syncopation in there, but for the most part, they're going to use these little bricks that they've been using over and over again, and they'll create and improvise more freely if they have those already embedded in their system. So how do we get students more comfortable with them? How do we get students to be thinking with these rhythmic building bricks in mind? That's what we're going to talk about in just a second. So these 5 different patterns, I even have them printed out and I have them on my wall. And I use them all the time. So for example, like if I wanted to do a lesson with a song or a poem that is based on food or eating, or if I have a book that's based on food or eating, I might pull out some rhythmic building bricks that I've already pre-made that are based on foods. Cucumber, ta-toddy. Orange, ta-ta. Okay, depending on where you live. Some people say orange is 1 syllable. I say orange, but that's me. Apple cider, toddy-toddy. Strawberry, ta-toddy. So these are just cherries, ta-ta. These are just already pre-printed. These are things that I've made, and so then when students are wanting to work with these because they're pre-printed manipulatives, they can put them together in an order that they like, and they can read them that way: cucumber, orange, apple cider, strawberry. Maybe we add in some of the other foods down here. Let's see. Those were all sort of fruity, sweet things. Let's see what else I've got. There we go. Okay. Eggs and bacon, macaroni, cheese, corn. So these little these little, well, these are food themed. These little cards we can put together, and then we can arrange, we can read, we can perform. So once we've got this little pattern, the kids will latch onto the words, and then we can read the rhythms that go associated with the words. We could play on a non-pitched instrument. We could play it on a pitched instrument. Like, there's a lot that we can do. And then if they're pre-printed already on these cards, and you can sort of swap them out, change them around, do all sorts of stuff, and then kids are very comfortable with that. I use these food cards the most of all the rhythm cards that I have, of all the rhythm manipulatives that I have, because kids love food, and figuring out the rhythms of food words is not tricky because they're so used to those words and they say them so often. But you don't have to stick with this theme. I have this theme with just regular foods. I also have, here we go. I also have fall-themed foods because I do a lot of these sort of activities around Thanksgiving. So let's see, how are these different? There are some that are the same, right? So like jam, not necessarily just fall. Pepper, not necessarily just fall. Graham cracker. Okay, you could maybe say bonfires, right? But there are some words in here that are more fall. So like pumpkin pie, cranberries. Those are things that are a little bit more maybe fall, Thanksgiving themed. I've also got apple pie. What's another one here that's maybe more fall themed? Pumpkin latte, turkey, right? Okay, so those are all things that you would maybe use that are more themed towards like a fall food. But then, guess what? Any theme that you want, that you can come up with different resources that work. So if I'm going into the ocean, I have more that I've already made. Okay, some of these are kind of a stretch. Killer whale, okay, that's a good one. Coral reef, okay. Shell, walrus. Some of these building bricks are harder to find examples for, so that's why I cheated on this one. Happy clam. Okay, but the picture, he does look very happy, so I'm going to defend that one. Scuba diver, stingray. So with these resources that I've made, I have 30 different words. Now, I will tell you, I do not often put all 30 words into one bag. That's too many options for kids. But because I have 30 separate words, I usually just split them in half, and I'll have 15 in one and 15 in another. Now, these print 9 to a page. So instead of having 9 bags with 30 words, I end up with 18 bags with 15 words in each. And that's almost often enough for the classes that I work with, because most of the time when I'm doing something like this, I'll have them work in pairs or groups of 3, so I don't even need all the 18 bags. But if you have a larger class or you're splitting up a different way, you could do something else. But having these preset is really, really nice. Kids can also come up with words. If you're going to have kids come up with words for the 5 different categories, you absolutely can. But it's going to double or triple the amount of time that it takes to do the activity, because it takes a long time for them to figure out words with syllables that match. Some of them are easy. Like if you have like ta, ta, if you have two, the 2 quarter notes. This one's easy because you just say you need a word with 2 syllables or 2 sounds. Well, not sounds. I try not to say sounds in the word because my kids are so like, I hate to say hooked on phonics, but they're so bound by phonics because that's what we do. That saying sounds is not correct, because cat for me is 1 syllable, but it's at 3 sounds. Okay, so but I used to say sounds. Now I say syllables as much as I can. So 2 syllable words, that's easy, easy-ish. Another one that's sort of easy is 4 syllable words. This one you can sort of cheat a little bit. So instead of like, if we're thinking about foods, watermelon, peanut butter. But peanut butter is actually 2 words. right? So this is one where you can put two words together, and sometimes it's like it works just like purple dragon. That works great, and it can go together. Or magic dragon, right, or whatever. Okay, so that would sort of work. The other one that's easy-ish is one-syllable words. Foods are especially easy for this. I mean, other things, one-syllable words, those are fine. Where you have problems is when you get to three-syllable words. Ta, toddy, or toddy, ta. Because kids will come up with three-syllable words, but they have a hard time deciding, is it 1 plus 2 or 2 plus 1? I'll give you an example. Cranberries. I just said that one. Cranberry, I would say, is cran-berry, right? One sound plus, sorry, sound, one syllable, and then two syllables together. Cranberries. It's determined by where the emphasis is in the word, right? So cranberries. You wouldn't say, oh my gosh, these pages are stuck here. You wouldn't say cranberries. You'd say cranberries, not cranberries, right? That one's actually a pretty simple one. Another one that's easy would if you have like a compound word, like apple pie. Well, that's two words. Okay, blueberry. Blueberry is another one where it's blue is its own syllable, berry is its own syllable. When you have other words that don't have that, then that's when things become kind of tricky, like broccoli. Is broccoli, broccoli, is it broccoli? Is it a triplet with three equally emphasized syllables? Broccoli. I don't think it's that actually. I would probably say 2 plus 1. Broccoli. Ta-dee-ta. The thing where it gets tricky, though, is when you're trying to decipher between three-syllable words, some words do not fit. Because sometimes you'll have a word with an anacrusis, like a word with a pickup in it, right? So like banana is a really great example. Banana, kids will want to do one syllable plus two. Banana, right? But if you're saying banana, you don't say, I'd like a banana. You say, I want a banana. And where the emphasis falls, where you really put that emphasis is on the nana, banana. And the ba is really an anacrusis. It's a pickup into the word. And so that's where things become tricky. And when kids ask and they say, oh yeah, banana, it's not 1 plus 2. Well, then where does it go? It's not 2, it's not banana. I mean, maybe if you're like a minion, I don't know. Anyway, but I always say, oh, that goes in the honorable mention category. I don't want to tell them it's one single eighth note plus two quarter notes, because then that just gets very confusing when we're talking about rhythmic building breaks. Maybe later on in time we'll do that, but I just go like, oh, it's a nice honorable mention. It's where we put the 5-syllable words, or where we put, words that don't seem to fit. So, like another great example is croissant. Croissant is not it's not croissant, it's croissant. Right, and so this is like a single eighth note plus a quarter note. So getting kids to understand that, it just takes a lot of time. And so that's why I'm saying if you have kids come up with their own words, it's going to double or triple the amount of lesson time you have. If you give them pre-printed words, it does not take so long. So that's why I'm saying I have a bunch of these already preset, like pre-made, that if you're like, hey, I would like to use David's quick and easy version, I have some links to those on the links page if you're interested. I think I've made them for like every theme I can, like zoo animals, foods, outer space, magic, like all sorts of stuff. So if you're like, oh, I want to have a lesson on XYZ, I already have a bunch of rhythmic building breaks like preset in case you want to just like, I just want to print and go. Okay, cool. But let's talk about like this example in a lesson. So if I want to do like the poem 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. Meet me at the garden gate. If I'm late, please don't wait. 2, 4, 6, 8. That poem is great. It's short, right? You can do a lot with it. You can clap the rhythms. You can do the rhythms on non-pitch percussion. You could come up with a dance or a game that matches. Like, you could make it melodic and figure out how to sing it or play it. Like, that's a really, really fun thing if you take a poem and you go to, like, the barred instruments and you say, now we're going to play it. Find a way to play, blah, 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 and make it melodic. That's fun. But you could also go through and come up with rhythmic building bricks for this, and then have a B section where kids get to improvise. Put them together in different ways and come up with different things. So for this one, I would probably say, what are some garden-related words, flowers, garden-related something that would go along with, the garden gate, right? Okay, so like if we started with ta. Well, if we're going just flower, words are a lot. Iris, or like tulip, daisy. Like there are a lot of words like that that would work. You could also, if you're going to do garden related, you could say like bucket, because you have to carry things in a bucket, or flower even, if you just wanted that, right? You could be a little bit more general. Let's go with lily. I'm going to go with flowers for my examples, but I'm going to let, you decide what you want to do. But I'm going to say lily just so I remember. Okay, I'm going to come back to my my 3-syllable words in a second. Let's do toddy. This one is another one that's actually not that tricky. When I do stuff like this with kids, in case they don't come up with answers, I already have some preset, right? So, some of the ones that I use for this are dandelion, wildflower, calla lily, gladiolas. Those are some options. Rest. You could do gate. This one would be so easy for gate. Okay. Or late, because it relates to the poem. Some flower words: rose, phlox, kale. Kale technically is a flower, but I think I'm going to stick with rose. Okay, and then when we get to the 3 syllables, this is when it gets more tricky. So for toddy, some easy ones are snapdragon, sunflower. You could probably come up with some other garden-related things. This one you could do lavender, marigold, dahlia, peony for toddy. Or this one you could do vegetable. Maybe your garden is not a flower garden. Maybe it's a vegetable garden. Vegetable. So you've got options here. So then when they're doing their a B section with this, they could take those words and come up and make their own little chain. So it'd be like snapdragon, dandelion, lavender, snapdragon, lily, rose. And I guarantee, even if you give them those 5 building bricks and you have different groups around the room and say you needed to put 8 of them together, you have 8 spots, you got to fill 8 spots and try and use different building bricks, each group is going to come up with a different answer. It always seems to happen that way, that kids come up with different things. But the building bricks make it so simple because they're just taking these little words and arranging and rearranging them in different orders, and they're coming up with totally different answers. So the cool thing about this, though, is the more you do activities where kids take the building bricks and they use them in different ways, the more that kids start internalizing that, so that later on, when you don't give them a themed building brick, they still have the capability to go through and improvise and come up with new things, because these small, simple patterns are preset in their brain. There are also rhythmic building bricks for groups of 3. So if you're in 6/8 time or 3/4 time, there are building bricks that match those. You can read all about building bricks here in Elementaria. It's a really great book. I encourage you to go and find it. It's absolutely worth your time. It's also not that expensive. But if you're going to go do a level 1, a lot of level 1s, the ones I teach, and many others require Elementaria. It's a really, really wonderful book. If you've already read it and you're like, David, this talk about building bricks has inspired me to do more, then you should get Discovering Kate Mon by Jane Frazee. It's a really, really wonderful book that gives you more information, but also is very specific about pieces and why Kate Mon's genius shows through those pieces and what you could do with those pieces. So if you're like, I really do love Kate Mon, I want more, Discovering Kate Mon is a really, really great book. And something that I require for my level 2s. So it's absolutely applicable to your knowledge and a really wonderful resource. Okay, speaking of resources, I did say that I have a bunch of these sets: food, animals, underwater, outer space, all pre-done for you. If you're like, I don't want to go through and come up with all these bricks on my own, I have a bunch of them already set. I have a link on the links page to my TPT store where I have every theme that I've made. I also have some interactive games where it kind of flips it on its head, where it gives kids the word and they have to decide what rhythmic building brick goes with that word. And so I oftentimes leave those for a substitute teacher, or my kids can pull it up the game on their iPad. Sometimes we play it together, a whole group in class. where I put it up on the board. I used to do it on a smart board, but I don't have the touch sensitive boards anymore. So now I pull it up on my iPad and I mirror it up to the board so that kids can come up and can, I do a random kid picker and then they come up and they choose which rhythmic building brick works, and other kids in small groups can play along as that happens. But those interactive games are another way to sort of reinforce that understanding of rhythm and knowledge, or rhythm and syllables. And the reading specialist teacher really loves that I do that, even though I'm so glad you think it's applicable for like your classroom, but it's absolutely applicable for my classroom. So I'm going to keep teaching it regardless of whether you think it's cool, but I'm so glad you think it's cool. Anyway, the rhythmic building bricks give you a lot of opportunities for what you can do, and especially are fun for arranging and improvising. So check them out, try out some different things, see how it works. I talked about rhythmic building bricks in like 3 or 4 of my sessions at TMEA, which is why I was like, I should talk about these on Musical Monday. So like if you weren't able to go to TME, like this is the sort of thing that you get to see there. I hope you do have PD in your area so that you can get cool ideas like this and use them all the time. If you don't have PD in your area, you can't make it to your state conference, maybe your school can't pay for it, you can't get a sub, there's some really cool online resources like these Monday night videos. I also have a Patreon page where I go through lesson by lesson and share all the sorts of things that I share in my like in-person workshops. So you get that sort of thing too. So if you're interested and you want more PD, you can get it, and there's stuff out there for you. Okay, I hope this gives you some ideas. Thanks for coming along tonight on this day that many of us got off from school. Oh my gosh, you came to an evening workshop. Good for you. But I hope you have a great short week ahead of you, and I will see you all next Monday for another Musical Mondays video. Thanks for coming along with me tonight. Bye, everyone.